meeting agenda, and then discussion occurred during those meetings for the appointments.
Okay. So those have been decided?
Correct. As of last night, the final seats were filled.
Okay. And is there a list of the people on it somewhere?
I'm not sure if it's there, all the new appointees are already listed on the city's website. I know there's quite a few boards and a lot of appointments that happened the last two city commission meetings, so it will probably take a little bit to get all that updated.
Okay.
Nancy, I saw it on I think the Lawrence Times had the 4, and then also had a link for if you wanted, I think it's 4 or 5 maybe. Still looking for the last 2 members or something. We can actually probably announce that in our meeting if anybody wants.
Okay, thanks.
Is that right, Kathy?
Well,
Still like
their article filled, the latest article was the 4 that they filled last night, but there was 3 that were voted on the previous. 2 SAB members were on that previous list,
So is it full now?
Nancy and Mosen.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's full.
Nice.
Last night, there was 5 nominees and only 4 got voted on,
Oh, great.
because that was the max, yeah.
The max.
You have someone in the waiting room.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Thanks.
Sorry, Ben, I was on.
that's okay. You drive. I'm much better in that sidecar portion of the motorcycle. Are we good, Kathy? Should we roll?
You've got a quorum.
Huh? Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for showing up and for coming out for our final Sustainability Advisory Board meeting here. We're going to start with the call to order and some housekeeping items from the city's Sustainability Director, Kathy Richardson.
Good evening. A few housekeeping items for tonight's Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you're not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. All board members, please keep your video on. All others, keep your video off unless you are participating during the meeting. If you have any trouble, you can send me a chat. And the city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. And just a reminder, there is another board meeting tonight that will start at 7:30. So if we can wrap up by 7:15. And I'll turn the meeting back to you, Ben.
Yeah, hopefully we won't need that long. So our first item is just to approve our agenda for tonight. Did anyone have any modifications or concerns before we move on to that? Nope. Okay, hearing none, I would welcome a motion to approve our agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Nancy Muma, SAB member.
Thanks. Any
Second. I'll second.
Thanks, Dawn. Nancy moves and Dawn seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look over our minutes from the last meeting in July. Did anyone have any, I don't remember how the order, are we actually supposed to have a motion and a second and then discuss things about edits? No, right?
If anybody has questions, it could happen before the motion or edits.
Sure. Any questions or concerns about the meeting minutes from July?
I just want to make a comment that I think that it would be good to include any documentation that was brought up in the meeting as part of the minutes. Going forward, I've mentioned this before, and any kind of report that Kathy provides would be really, really helpful in when we are looking back on what we did before, if we had those kind of attachments in our minutes.
You mean beyond the ones that would be in the agenda for that meeting?
Correct. I mean, personally, I think they should be part of the minutes as well, but,
Okay, so on the agenda and then attached again to the meeting.
and anything else that's brought forward or presented during that meeting that was not on the agenda.
Okay.
But I have no issues with this particular set of minutes.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns about the meeting minutes from July? Okay, anyone so moved to put forward a motion?
I'll move we approve the minutes.
Thanks.
I'll second.
Second from Nancy. So motion by Stan, second from Nancy. Kathy, what's the maybe public comment from JT? Is that a portion now for minutes? I don't remember procedure.
In the past, the Sustainability Advisory Board has said that it would allow for public comment when taking action.
Okay.
If so.
JT, did you have a comment on that or just for the public comment portion that's coming up next?
Yeah, might be for the next.
Public comment.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought. I thought you were preemptively raising your hand, so thank you. Everybody in favor of approving our minutes from July, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, look at that. We can do things like agendas and minutes. The next period is for general public comment on items that are not in the agenda. So, yeah, JT, if you have some thoughts outside of our staff report and the subcommittee reports, please, we'd love to hear from you.
I would like to say thank you to all those who are serving now and have in the past. This board has made Kansas history and put a highlight on and pressure on in ways that have unfortunately made the city uncomfortable at times. But y'all have put in a lot of hours and very competent hours and brought a lot of professional expertise, and you have my my personal deepest thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. No one in the room for public comment either. So with that, we can move right along to our staff report from Director Richardson.
Yeah. Hi, Kathy Richardson, Sustainability Director. So didn't have a whole lot for this meeting, but I did want to mention just another kind of bit of bad news for our region in terms of federal grants. So the City of Lawrence and Douglas County had been working with the Mid-America Regional Council, so MARC, for hopes of receiving some funds from the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. So that's one we've been working on for quite a while, and we're very excited. Mid-America Regional Council had a lot of partners and stakeholders in this, lots of meetings and organization around it. But unfortunately, MARC and the Kansas City area was not selected for the CPRG grant. So I know we've reported a couple months ago, Kansas was not successful in the Solar for All application either. So anyway, our staff, we're still going to meet with MARC staff and continue discussions of possibility of additional grant funding in the future. So we're still going to be part of the conversation. We're, again, just clarification, we're outside of the MARC region, but we are part of the Kansas City Climate Action Plan. So we do participate in these discussions quite a bit, and we would be eligible for the grant distribution if the MARC region would have been successful in this one. So we'll keep looking for other possibilities. As you all know, a small city like Lawrence is not very competitive. We were hoping that all the cities and counties coming together for the grant application that Mark submitted was going to, we were hoping for success there. But anyway, we'll keep trying to get some funding for climate work in our region. And then with that, I did want to, if it's okay, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about the board transition, just a reminder. Okay. So I don't think I can say it better than JT did, but I do want to thank you all for your service as well. There are 2 members that were appointed to the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board, but I know that we were working on potentially having a list of all the accomplishments that this board has been working on, and I don't know if we got that for tonight. Yeah, it's okay. But I do want to thank you on behalf of the staff in the city of Lawrence. And on the board, the Sustainability Advisory Board, as you know, is set to dissolve at the end of this month. So this will be the last board meeting. And then the new board with the new members that were appointed will meet sometime in September. So it's a pretty quick turnaround for the continuation. And in September, there'll be a discussion to setting, a consistent date and time for that new board to come together. I know some of you had questions about the appointees, so it wasn't just the mayor, but all the commissioners could nominate applicants for this board. And during last week's Tuesday meeting, there were 3 appointments, and then last night there were 5 nominees and 4 appointments that occurred. So at this time, based on just the action that the commission has taken, there have been appointments for all the seats. I don't know if anybody else had questions on that. Just wanted to clarify because I do know before this meeting there were some questions.
Thanks.
Okay.
Any other things that you thought of?
That's,
Okay. Any quick questions for the staff report or for Kathy generally?
oh, one item. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
The Climate Action and Adaptation Plan has not yet gone to City Commission for its adoption. It did, as you all know, it went through the County Commission. We are still waiting on a final draft of it, with the photos and graphs and all of that. The county wanted to kind of wrap that up before the cities considered taking action on it as well. So I think I last reported that it would happen in one of the city commission meetings in August, but looks like now it will probably be September. So just wanted to update you on that because I know all of you worked quite a bit on it as well.
Dawn, did you have something quickly?
Oh, I just wondered if there was more on that for the report. Just kind of curious what Kathy's, what you're planning on, how you're planning on starting off with the new board, and what kind of things you have, what irons you have in the fire right now beyond what you've already mentioned.
Yeah, so
Show us the hand you get to play next.
show the what?
Show us the hand you're going to play next.
Oh, yeah, no. This new board is going to be aligned with the commitment of environmental sustainability. As you know, this whole project was to align boards with the city's strategic plan. There is a lot of work to do within the city's strategic plan and within this commitment. So really how it shapes up as to when we meet and what topics get taken on first and all of that has not been decided. That's a conversation to have with the new board members. at the beginning, it's just getting to know each other. I don't know a lot of the applicants that were nominated and then appointed to these boards. So I do know, at the beginning, will be a lot of them getting to know each other and getting to know staff and the strategic plan and so forth.
I mean, any documentation too we have, I say this in my subcommittee report, that can be useful. I mean, we've just been working on waste management KPI, which, I think a lot of the more recent things we've done have explicitly tried to outline how it links with the strategic plan. So
Yeah.
my hope is that some of those can be starting points at least, and everything, you don't have to remake the wheel on things that the city and the new ESAB can find common ground on, or can move forward. So I stole this little thing from Michael Allman, I think. Actually, it's from the Sustainability Action Network, when I was trying to look at what SAB does. And it's just a little thing, but I just wanted to read it real quick, because for me, it kind of highlights some of the great work that SAB has done. So I think most of us hopefully recognize that SAB predates both Plan 2040 and the strategic plan for the city, and in fact had a major influence on both of those. The SAB either initiated or was instrumental in advancing many policies and programs, including the 2012 curbside recycling, the 2009 climate protection plan, the city's 100% renewable energy goals, the city's sustainable capital projects policy, the single-use plastic bag ordinance, and we have lots and lots of proposals that at least have been recommended, like the rooftop solar, natural landscaping, weatherization, and electrifying buildings. So that's just a little short bit there. And I know I haven't been here forever, and we didn't get time to kind of do the honorific of what SAB really, the totality of what it's meant for a long time. But, it started out as a recycling board a long, long time ago, and it's changed over the years. And my hope is that even in this, I know the SAB will dissolve and will not become, a new ESAB will form, but my hope is that the transformation of that can continue the great work that I think SAB has done.
I'd like to just follow up on that a major part of the success of the Sustainability Advisory Board over the years, from my limited purview, has been participation by the public in these meetings, not necessarily just sitting on the board, but I'm one who just recently became a board member, but I've been participating for years. And I would venture to say that none of that would have happened without the participation of the public at large, not just the board members. So I hope that the new board will continue to hold public comment in high regard.
Anybody else want to pat ourselves on the back? Sorry, I'm snarky. It's that time of year. It's hot outside. Sorry, the only main agenda item we have tonight are our subcommittee reports. And we didn't draw straws for the order in which we were going to do those. I think we have 3. Is that correct?
There's one posted on the agenda that Nancy's subcommittee had submitted,
Oh, great.
and then Kay, and then yourself, I believe.
Yeah, I have
all
one that I
updates,
wrote,
or-
and sorry
Okay.
that I didn't get it to you in time.
Yeah.
Nancy, it might be in the middle of something. Do you want, Kay or Nancy, do you want me to go first? Do you guys want to go first? Paper, rock, scissors?
You're muted, Nancy.
Oh, you're muted, Nancy.
I thought everybody had access to it, so am I still muted?
Nope.
You're good.
Oh, okay. So does it need to be read, or should it just be?
It's on the agenda, the online agenda. If you want to add any additional remarks, you can, or if anybody has questions
Notes
for
or-
Nancy.
Yeah, anything? No? You're like, I wrote the report. Why do I need to say anything about it? Just read it. That's perfectly fine. I appreciate all the information and effort that you've put.
Well, I'd be happy to read it if that's what's wanted. I just thought it was redundant.
Yeah. Sounds fine.
Okay.
Thanks, Nancy, and thanks for all your efforts on lots of different subcommittees. And yeah, Thanks for making stuff happen. Kay, you want to go next? Do you want me to?
I will go quickly, and my dog is starting to bark, so if he interrupts, I apologize. The renewable, the ordinance number 9744 was what we had started a subcommittee a couple of months ago, but since the decision was to stop the SAB and start ESAB, we didn't get very far along, although I did get information from Mosen, and so and he was not able to be here tonight, but I do want to mention some of the things that he had talked about. We had started talking about how and what we thought the city should do in moving forward with the ordinance, which does have a list of renewable energy goals, which includes 2025 for electricity and municipal operations, 2035 for all energy sectors and municipal operations, 2030 for electricity citywide, and by 2035 for all energy sectors citywide. Just to highlight a few of the suggestions that Mosen had made, which I'm hoping that he will be able to carry on as a new ESAB member. He had suggested enhancing energy efficiency and building performance. Obviously, buildings gobble up a lot of energy, probably between 30 to 40, maybe even 50% in the city of Lawrence. Energy is used by buildings. And so there was quite a few ideas: develop and employ a building performance standard beginning with energy benchmarking, and adopt commercial energy and energy efficiency programming and incentives, certify every public building for Energy Star or LEED. And he had quite a few of those type of suggestions. Expanding renewable energy and sustainable solutions, increase incentives and eliminate barriers for residential solar energy production. Obviously, some of these would require possibly additional changes in the state law. So we've always felt like it's important that the city of Lawrence participate in legislative affairs where it comes to renewable energy solutions. Another is advancing sustainable transportation and infrastructure, which obviously moving to the electric buses have been wonderful, and we're really excited for that. Promoting sustainable urban development and land use. There are ways that the land development code can be there's ways that can be incentivized, and that is one of the things that Mosen also suggested. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the things. Obviously, he also had made a presentation regarding renters and energy efficiency, and obviously we think that there are a lot of ways that that could be improved in the city of Lawrence. There are there's the code enforcement staff could potentially be involved when apartments are inspected. Anyway, there's a lot of different things that the city of Lawrence could look at as far as this ordinance. One of the things that we did ask, and I will continue to ask for, regardless of whether I'm going off the board or not, in this particular ordinance, it asks as the procedure that there is some responsibilities placed. And one of them was that the city manager's office was to engage in an annual review of progress toward the goals as set out in this article. And this particular ordinance, 9744, was passed in March of 2020, and yet we have still not seen a report from the city manager's office. That was supposed to be an annual report. There needs to be accountability in this particular ordinance, and it hasn't happened. So we asked for that. There was also in the letter that we sent to the city manager's office, Mosen had prepared a format for that report. We've heard nothing from the city manager's office. I'm sad to say and disappointed that we have heard nothing about that. That I hope that the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board will continue to move forward with it. It is part of the city's strategic plan, and it also is an ordinance. So I have looked forward to participating in the last 5 years for each and every one of our meetings, and am proud to have been serving on all of the different subcommittees that I've been on, as well as participating in others, and also participating outside of the Sustainability Advisory Board for appointments representing SAB. Don't know how that is going to go forward, but I've appreciated working with everybody, and hope to see the city of Lawrence will progress like we have been in the past. So anyway, thank you. That's my role.
Thanks, Kay. Thanks for being a tireless sustainability advocate, both inside SAB and outside it, and all your hard work over the last 5 years. I don't know if does anybody have any questions on some of the things Kay outlined? Or we can move on to mine.
Kathy, do you think we'll ever see a report?
Yes. I do. I think also there will be conversations about the actual ordinance and the timelines that were
For 9744.
created. Sorry, I'm not speaking into the mic. So I think there's going to be some conversations started about that 2035 timeline.
My bad.
Whoa.
My bad. Yep, my bad.
I think we started a little bit of that conversation when you all invited Commissioner Dever of some commissioners' understanding of the ordinance being that the city purchasing, wind energy credits gets us to 100%. But we're not being powered by renewable energy. We are paying towards, hopefully the advancement of renewable energy. But yeah, there's a different conversation to have there. If the ordinance really is truly about that all our facilities and then the whole community being powered by renewable energy at its source, then that timeline seems a little short.
I mean, short of having a microgrid that separates the city from the rest of the grid, you can't assure what color electrons are coming. Are they green electrons or brown electrons? So when you say we're not powered by renewable energy, really the only way to show it right now is on paper. So, I mean, if you want 100% certainty, you have to change the whole electrical system. Basically, we would need our own municipal system, and we would need to be not interconnected.
Yeah, there's ways to get there closer, I think, as well, like to get more tractability on those kind of things, though, as well, right? I mean, it's not just a black and white system, I agree with you.
Right, I mean,
Short of,
you'd have to make some pretty substantial changes to.
Yeah, so ESAB is definitely going to be part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just curious if you think of it like.
Yeah,
Since
it's
it's
like,
obviously something that has to be done.
as Kay mentioned, part of the ordinance is represented in our strategic plan, not the community-wide view, but just the city operations is part of the connected city and environmental sustainability cross-section there. So, we are, we've been working on that, the fleet transition. We've been working on some sources for renewable energy for facilities, but, we're very far behind. if truly we want to be powered 100% by renewable energy. We're having discussions with transit and how that's going to go to its zero emissions transition, and those timelines are, quite shocking to the consultants we're working with and others in the community and even experts in the field of renewable energy, just based on how that ordinance is worded. I think that, and I think you all know, the ordinance as presented by the Sustainability Advisory Board back in 2020 did have the timeline of 2050. So that's how it was presented to the City Commission. And during that City Commission meeting is when the timeline was edited down to a more aggressive 2035. So just FYI, I think this board had done a lot of research. The former sustainability director had too, on understanding the time needed for, this goal. But it was edited during that commission meeting and voted on by the commissioners at a more aggressive timeline.
And this is Kate Johnson. I would like to add that I believe that the commissioners should be leading the charge if they decide to change the ordinance, because I do not believe the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board should be the one to do that. The commissioners know what the budget situation is. Actually, so do the board members. And, a lot of this depends on funding, and I think that it needs to be actually reviewed and looked at with the eye of the budget on there, so that the recommendations come from the commissioners, because we've made recommendation to the commissioners, and the commissioners have said, oh, why don't you go back and think about something else? Well, this particular one is an ordinance that was passed, and this particular ordinance needs to be made changes. If it's going to be made changes, I believe it should come from the commissioners.
Only the commission can make changes to the ordinance, so.
I'm not saying that we couldn't make, I know we can't make changes, but I'm saying that we've made many recommendations along the way for a lot of different ordinances that never either got adopted or we were asked to do something else. I'm saying that the commissioners need to be making the recommendations on how the ordinance, if it's given to the ESAB to look at, it should start with the commissioners.
Kathy, are you and city staff already working on some proposed revision to the ordinance? 'Cause the commission's not going to do anything unless they have something put in front of them.
Yeah, so we are working on the pieces of how could we transition to that. For example, one piece that we were waiting on for quite a while was the fleet transition. And just so you all know, you did receive a presentation last meeting, but that presentation has not gone to City Commission yet. So again, there has to be some community engagement before it's presented to the City Commission. So I know they wanted to, come around and circle back to this board, because originally they came with that discovery presentation, and then I believe they wanted to do another community engagement presentation where others could attend and ask questions and that type of stuff before they go to commission. That's very common, to do community engagement, a little community engagement before presenting something like this to the City Commission. But all of these pieces we were waiting on, and I know there's some editing going on at the time. So once we have all that information, we can start to look at, what could be some recommended changes, what could be something that we ask the commission to give us some direction on. and so forth.
So there is discussion among city staff in terms of proposing a revision to the ordinance.
We haven't had meetings to say this is what we're going to change of the ordinance. We're gathering information, and right now, all the consultants we're working with are telling us this is not a doable timeline and I think, Kay, again, I just want to talk about the importance of what she brought up is the financial piece. So one of our commitments in our strategic plan is environmental sustainability, but we also have a commitment to sound fiscal stewardship. So some of these reports and findings that we're getting are telling us that the amount of budget dollars needed, as Kay mentioned, are just not going to be feasible for the city. I think you heard a little bit of that with the fleet transition, even them talking about that they're not even finding some electric vehicle options for some of the heavy-duty trucks right now. All of that technology is quickly expanding, and more options will be available in the future, but it's that timeline crunch that we're not quite sure we're going to make. So again, we want to put together information, and we shared that with this group. We'll share it with the ESAB as well, and others, and hopefully have a community conversation around this.
Do you happen, since this is our last item, right?
For these subcommittee reports, yeah.
For the meetings, do we have something after that?
Isn't there another subcommittee report?
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay. It's yours too, Dawn, so. I better get the password right if I'm going to read what I wrote here. All right, I'm hacking the web here. This is the subcommittee report for the Weeds and Sustainable Landscaping Subcommittee, and I didn't get a whole subcommittee to approve this, sorry, because I just wrote it, a couple days ago, but this includes Terry Wilkie, Michael Allman, Courtney Masterson, Dawn Hawkins, both when she was a member of the public and now since she's been a member of the board, and Karen Pagel-Miners, as well as myself. And just to shout out to what Dawn said earlier, a lot of public engagement. Subcommittee was made up of a majority of the public members that cared about these things. So I just want to echo that. So thanks for the opportunity to update the full SAB and the public. The efforts we have undertaken on this are significant, but so far have not yielded any significant fruit. So let me tell you how it began. So if anyone remembers where they were in winter of 2021, it was quite dark for some of us. I actually had just started on SAB. I started, I think, in January was my appointment, and I'm pretty sure either the January or February meeting was when members of the public actually brought this before SAB. And so they had specific issues with the current weed ordinance, and those included that the weed list includes many native species and misspellings, that native plantings were only allowed by exemption from the city commission, and that the height limits that are in the current ordinance that deem plants noxious essentially didn't account for the height of the native vegetation here in our region. So what did SAB do? We responded in March 2021, basically prioritizing this issue and trying to provide recommendations to the city for the noxious weed ordinance. We met multiple times over the next 2 years. As community members had highlighted, we recognized that the weeds portion was really only a single element of landscaping ordinances that badly needed updating. Many of them have remained unchanged since 1979. I'll show my age by telling you that's the year I was born. That was a long time ago. I feel very gray hearing that. So in particular, the subcommittee sought to revise the ordinance in ways that promote, rather than simply allow by exemption, sustainable landscaping practices. So what do we do? So the first thing we started doing by doing this is copying. So we went to MARC, the Mid-America Regional Council, which had model ordinances for sustainable landscaping, and we stole them. They're online, so they're free, to borrow. And we started trying to craft a revised ordinance. And with feedback from the broader SAB, we worked and then reworked that over the course of an entire year. The members met with city staff that are tasked with enforcement and the city's sustainability manager. And ultimately, the subcommittee produced a final recommendation in the spring of 2022. So the revisions that we outline would have pretty important outcomes, three of which I want to highlight. First, revising the noxious weed list aligns the list of prohibited plants with that of the county and state. So these changes remove prohibitions for native plants previously listed as weeds and would reduce confusion at the city line where plants are acceptable on one side of the line and not on the other. Second, the revised violation procedure would have provided an arbitration path and assesses fine based on earnings. So that's called a day fine system and is pretty cool and popular in Europe. So if you get a speeding ticket and you make $1 million a year versus you get a speeding ticket and you make $1,000 a year, the fines aren't the same. Changes that provide an arbitration path, that incorporate restorative justice practices and increase equity in our penalty system. Finally, the ordinance promotes the use of sustainable native landscaping, which enhances municipal and ecological services, resilience and resistance to climate change, including stormwater mitigation, reduce nutrient pollution in waterways, resilience to extreme weather, and increase pollinator habitats. So those revisions are explicitly aligned with multiple elements of Lawrence strategic plans, including specific KPIs, and Plan 2040. Those are all in the ordinances that we adopted. Several regional municipalities, including Hayes and Johnson County and Lincoln, Nebraska, have already passed similar ordinances, and many others are currently crafting them. So in May 2022, the full SAB voted to approve these recommendations and send them to City Commission. So in December 2022 is when City Commission accepted these recommendations. The commissioners provided feedback, including separating elements appropriate for the land development code revisions and trying to engage a broader group of stakeholders before we move forward. So they asked that SAB work on those. I have to admit, just frustratedly, that those weren't as detailed as we would have liked them, but even without that specific guidance, we still continued to revise in the spring and summer of 2023. We met with NAACP representative. We separated elements that we thought could go in the LDC. Kay and I and others are still pursuing those through that route. And we updated the ordinance language around the day fine system. The city attorney's office basically told us there's no precedent for that, and they're not even sure it's legal in Kansas, so it might not work. Most of us, I think, remember that Prairie Park was herbicided accidentally in May of 2023, and we thought that might kind of help to move along the issue, that City Commission could take them up. So in November of 2023, the full SAB advanced the revised recommendations. That SAB meeting was actually really productive for some of the reasons we talked about here, because we had Parks and Rec representatives and they talked to us about realistic expectations for what this would mean for personnel and for budget. But to my knowledge, the revised recommendations we sent to City Commission haven't been explored yet. So I just want to finish with telling you that throughout the process, we still have tried to move the needle. First, we try to simplify and separate requests to get traction. So in 2023, Director Richardson asked the city manager's office and attorneys if we could just change the weed list, the names that we had on there, and if we could remove kind of some of the natives that were on the list without changing the full ordinance. The answer, I think, was no. Second, we tried to engage the broader public, as Commissioner suggested. Apart from individual groups like the NAACP, there were multiple stories that were published on our recommended revisions. There was several stories by KPR, by Celia Lopez Jepson. I actually drove around Lawrence to talk about pointing out yards and what the recommendations would do. And third, we engaged with surrounding municipalities. The stories actually reached a lot of folks. Indeed, based partly on those stories, in April 2024, Overland Park changed their weed ordinances in ways that largely mirror what our recommendations would do for this city. So we did engage other municipalities in May 2024. So a few months ago, Director Richardson and I met with Ian Fannin Hughes and Leslie Rigney from Johnson County to learn about their Save the Rain cost share program for stormwater diversions. That includes native plantings, rain barrels, and things like that. I think we learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot, especially how they fund their program, how it's rolled out to the individual municipalities of the county, where they do more of it for smaller municipalities, what the staffing and the budget would look like, and maybe even some grant opportunities for Lawrence Douglas County to engage in that. So that's where our recommendations stand right now. The revised ordinance recommendations from last November are ready for the City Commission to take up. Most of the changes in the ordinance could take place with no additional funding. I would say our neighbors are doing this, but we're not yet, even though the recommendations, I think, align explicitly with the strategic plan. We made a strong effort to do that. A lot has changed in landscaping and weed management since 1979. Some of these are simple and doable, and I think can exemplify the city's commitment to sustainability and its strategic plan more broadly. All the documentation that we have for this will be available to the new ESAB, and I hope that working with Director Richardson, this can be an easy win for them. That's what I got.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
Or not really impressive.
Did I talk
recap.
that much?
No, recap all that and remind us everything that's been
We
done.
did a bunch. We did a bunch. Still doing a bunch. Still trying to do stuff through the Land Development Code, and like I said, I think we moved the needle with the recommendations we've had, and it's, at least if there's interest and traction in trying to move on those items that align with these KPIs, I hope that people don't feel like they have to start from zero. And this was an element that was brought to us by the public that SAB responded to and took the burden on, and then we had members of the public engaged with it in trying to revise it. So that's all I got. Any thoughts, questions, concerns, rocks that you want to throw? Seeing none, we can move on.
I just want to say, this is Catherine Morse, SAB board member. I just want to say thanks, Ben, for all your hard work on this, and also to everyone else who was on the subcommittee. I was able to just sit on the very last part of it, back in last November, and it seems like you guys have done a ton of great work on it, and it seems like it really should be an easy, like I say, an easy win for the ESAB board to finish. And I do hope they do that soon. It just seems, it's baffling to me what has happened this whole time, but I appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks. Yeah, go for it.
Since you mentioned it and referenced the Prairie Park issue, Kathy, did that ever get replanted by community members the way it was proposed to do?
Yeah, there was a lot of effort and contracted experts that were brought on for that remediation. A lot of it wasn't a complete wipeout of all the plants. So there was some remaining that were, that was helpful to continue. But I do know, like, Courtney's group was contracted and has done a lot of work over there, as well as KU Partners, as well as the Kansas State Extension Office partners. So, yeah.
I think there's also monitoring that's being paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I speak to that for a second?
Yeah.
Since I have inside knowledge, because my spouse is one of the people doing the monitoring of it. Luckily, the spraying that was done was a bit erratic. It was not as thorough as they probably hoped it would be. So there's a lot of unevenness in what has been eradicated and what has remained. And so that's good news, because there's a lot of species that remain. I don't know that, but one thing that I would say is that remediation efforts, of course, are important, but it's not a situation where these species can just be replanted. It's going to be much more complex and nuanced in moving forward, just to try to basically support the species that didn't get eradicated, and tracking them and seeing where they're doing well and things like that. So, but that's all I'll say about that.
Thanks, Katie. JT, did you want to chime in on the public side? I don't know if you're still there. You had your hand
He's
raised.
here.
He's there, his hand.
Got his video on.
Or it looks like.
Okay.
You got another public comment period at G. That's when I want to speak again.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's all of our subcommittee reports for the three groups, and there's been myriad subcommittees over the years from SAB, and I think they've done a lot of excellent and fantastic work, including moving things like plastic bags and other stuff that several people in here led, so thanks.
And this is Kate, and I do have a grave concern about how the sustainability, the new board is going to move forward without subcommittees. I understand that the city does not want to invest in funds to staff it. Subcommittees, I don't know how 12 meetings are going to get, one meeting a month is going to get a policy recommendation. It usually takes a lot of extra work, a lot of extra reading, a lot of extra research to develop something that is specific for the city of Lawrence. So I would urge the new board members to figure out a way to still continue to work outside of the board, maybe without staffing, because I can't see how 12 months of 1.5 hours of a meeting is going to produce some of the thoughtful policies that we've recommended. And it takes a lot of research to make sure that what we're doing is the best for our community. And just like you were talking, Ben, Nancy has done a lot of research outside our community, but those things that have been recommended, like with the plastic bag ordinance, as well as the weed ordinance, as well as a lot of the other things, we have to look as to what's best for our community. And you know, you can't just bring in an ordinance from somewhere else and expect that it would working good. And by the way, the plastic bag ban worked extremely well because we did work with the community and we did a lot of extra effort, and Kathy did a lot of extra effort. And that's the reason why it worked so well, is because we spent the time to make sure it was tailored toward our community.
Just to kind of follow up on that, because a couple of things that I was going to note. Well, I think one of the challenges for the SAB in the past in terms of trying to put something before the city commission is having a solid understanding of what the language should look like for an ordinance or a resolution. And so to get something ready to go to the city commission, when we don't have members on the board that know how to write these things in that way, then it means we need to lean on city staff to assist with that. And so I'm not sure what the exact remedy is there, but if subcommittees are not allowed going forward for this group, which is not my understanding from my interpretation of the myriad resolution and ordinances, but that I would encourage the next board to lean heavily on staff, which in turn can take a lot more staff time than having subcommittees. So don't quite understand that, but that was a question I was wanting to ask Kathy. Do you have a better understanding of what our subcommittee is going to be allowed? Is this different than other boards?
Yeah, I did want to clarify those last 2 points from Kay and Don. So the resolution that formed these new boards does not say that subcommittees are not allowed. It does say, though, that subcommittees are created based on the approval of the governing board, like the city commission. So city commission is who's going to approve formation of subcommittees within these boards. So I just want to clarify, they didn't say no subcommittees. And then the other thing, Don, you mentioned the writing of ordinances and resolutions. The resolution actually specifies that these advisory boards are not to draft or write ordinances or resolutions. So you present policy you'd like the city commission to consider, and if the city commission, agrees, they direct the legal staff in drafting the ordinance or the resolution or whatnot. But it wouldn't be, I know there's a portion there that specifies that advisory boards are not to be writing these legal documents.
I remember reading that, and so if played well, that could bode well and save time for the board by just saying, here's what we want, put this in writing. But I do worry about staff, dragging their feet on these things. So it sounds like the new board needs to stay ahead of city commission meetings. And I would recommend that the first order of business is to decide on subcommittees that they'd like and put that before the city commission right away.
Yeah, even besides dragging feet, staff is limited, staff time is limited. It took more than a year to get an attorney's opinion on some of the things with the weed ordinance. So that shift in workload will be a challenge. I think it eases some concerns from the advisory boards that they don't have to be experts, they don't have to be lawyers, no offense, Stan. We don't have to have.
Clarified, yes, that it's a good
We
point.
just don't know how to do that. Well, I certainly don't know how to do it. And so having that expertise is fantastic, but there's also a limited number of city staff that have the ability to do those things too. And anywho, thank you guys for the input. So I was just going to move, is anybody else have anything? Okay, with that, I was just going to finish up with our short public comment time. JT, it sounded like you had something. Go for it.
Stephen Watts has joined, you might.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the second comment period because it gives me a chance to tell you something I didn't mention earlier and you wouldn't know about yourselves. You began seeing me here 3 years ago. I began following advisory boards, some of them at every meeting, 2 or 3 of them, and others less frequently a dozen years ago. My first observation about you all remains the same, that you are the hardest working and most efficient advisory board the city has had.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. No members here. Anyone else for public comment?
Dropped off.
All right. Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you all for being members of the SAB, for your time, for your service. I like you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody,
You're out.
especially Kathy. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Kathy?
We did it.